Johnny Spaceballs presents Iron Man Steps Up Part 1 in Iron Man / Dracula 2000 / Step Up Croosovre by JOONY SPACEBATS. Chapter 11 The Step. RONI Man and MACINE were at the mall food court trying to get some corn dogs. IROM Man looked at War Machine and said,
"How come you look differetn?"
And War Machine said,
"Terence Howard is an asshole."
And then they laughed and said, "Ha ha ha!" And hten laughed some more. Chapter 3 Dracula and his vampiure knigths were into castle, which was not really a castle, but a warehouse that locked like a castle, beaucause draucula was into hiding. Drcula's favoirte vampire knight, Edward Cullen, looked at Dracula and said,
"Hey, Dracual!"
And Dracula said, "Hey." And then ewdward cllen said,
"Dracula, when do we get to go home to hten castle and not this fake castle, which is not really a castle?"
And then Dracula said, "We can go back to where the castle is when I revenge my father." Ecwardd cullen said,
"But Master, how do we do that?"
And Dracula smashed his gold-encrusted glass glod-encrusted chalice that was encrusted with gold-knee jewels and gold bats on it, because he was Dracula on the ground, by killing Tony Stark. And then Edward Cullen said,
"Wee! I love hten killing!"
Chapter 4 The Killing of Tony Stark. Dracula and his sea vampire knights nad Edward Cullen and Nosferatu and Bill Paxton and Lestat and Vamp from Metalgar and Klaus Kinski and Christopher Walken, who was not really vampire but was named Max Schreck in the Batman Return and was used as secret super CIA agent who was used as undercover who given fake vampire powers by science, unlike Bill Paxton who really were vampire and that why they were in movie. Chapter 5 The Attic. Edward Cullen said,
"Master, who do we get past security how at the Tony Strack Tower that belongs to Tony that has security forces that we need to get past?"
And Dracula said, "We will get through grenades with our minds into the cameras." And Edward Cullen said,
"But why?"
And Dracula said, "Because we are vampires," and laughed and threw his head back and laughed again. Chapter 8 A Very Merry Bloody Vampire Bloody Christmas Vampire. Tony Stark was in his building mansion home which Scarlett Johansson was nude on bear rug and War Machine had hten eggnog. Tony Saturn said,
"Hey, War Machine, do you want to know what I got you for Xmas?"
And then War Machine's eyes got big like Sailor Moon's and then his cheeks blushed until they turned into little hearts and he said,
"But Tony, you're so silly, Santa has not come yet."
And Tony Stank took sip of cigar and Wixie and said,
"Well, them she isn't trying hard enough."
And they laughed and Scarlett Johansson said,
"I am cold."
And War Machine said,
"No, you are naked Black Widow who is also nude."
And he threw empty glass at her head and it broke. Chapter 9 A Verit Wu-Taggin New Year. Redman and Method Man were Smokegan Blunt in Hter 1972 Chevy Impala Cattlecack, and Method Man,
"Yo, Redman, we are all outside of weed."
Then Redman said,
"Call up Toby Stark, he have weed."
And Method Man said,
"No thanks, we can call him, he is IROM Man."
And Red Moon said,
"What? You tripping with us?"
And then ODB was risen from the dead by Dracula to kill Tobney Star's Ferned so he could make him sad before he killed him. And he drank their blood and they died. But he was so hig because hten had THC and weed in hten. Chapter 10 To Christmas Vampire Shoes. It was almost Christmas vampire time. There I stood in another blood bank line, trying to buy that last gift or two, not really in the Christmas mood. Standing right in front of me was a little vampire waiting anxiously, pacing round like little vampires do, and in his hands he held a pair of vampire shoes. His clothes were worn and old because he was dead and slept in coffin, and when it came his time to pay, I couldn't believe what I heard him say. "Sir, I want to suck your dick." LOL, just kidding. "It's Christmas Eve and this blot is just such her type. Could you hurry, sir? Daddy says there's not much time. You see, she's been sick for quite a while, and I know these veins would make her smile, and I want her to look beautiful if Mama meets Dracula tonight." He counted pennies for what seemed like years. Then the cashier said, "Sir, there's not enough here." He searched his pockets frantically. Then he turned and he looked at me and said,
"Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with!"
and pulled out a Glock 45 and blew the cashier away. So I laid the money down. I just had to help him out. Because Dracula was storming the tower. I knew I'd caught a glimpse of Dracula's love, and he thanked me and ran out to suck some blood. Not dick, lulz. I knew that God had sent that little boy to feed those vampire knights.